A story of impossible choices, buried secrets, and the moment when the past collides with the future in the most devastating way imaginable. Hello, my beautiful viewers. I hope this video finds you in good spirits today. I'm so excited to share this emotional roller coaster with you. Before we dive in, I'm curious. Where are you watching from right now? Are you in the comfort of your home, sneaking a read during your coffee break, or perhaps winding down after a long day? I'd absolutely love to know. How's your day been so far? I hope it's been wonderful. Now, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please take just a moment to hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next in this story. It's filled with jaw-dropping twists, heart-wrenching moments, and revelations that will leave you speechless. Let's begin this incredible journey. The morning of Liam Crawford's wedding dawned with the kind of oppressive heat that makes expensive suits stick to your skin and reminds you that even money can't control everything. He sat in the back of his Rolls-Royce Phantom, watching the Chicago skyline glide past through tinted windows, and tried to remember how to breathe normally. In 3 hours, he would marry Charlotte Morrison, daughter of Senator Richard Morrison, heiress to a pharmaceutical empire, a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a Ralph Lauren advertisement and into his perfectly curated life. Charlotte, with her boarding school polish and her junior league connections and her way of making every room feel like it belonged to her family first. Charlotte, who was perfect on paper. Charlotte, who wasn't her. Liam pressed his fingers against his temples, trying to massage away the thought before it could fully form. He was 34 years old, worth $3.2 billion according to the latest Forbes estimate, and he'd spent the last 5 years building Crawford Technologies into one of the most innovative AI companies in the world. He'd revolutionized machine learning algorithms, disrupted 3 separate industries, and made his early investors wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. He'd done everything right. Everything according to the plan he'd mapped out when he was still a hungry kid from the South Side with more ambition than sense. Everything except forget Emma. "Sir, we're approaching the venue," his driver, James, said from the front seat. "Traffic's heavier than expected. There's some kind of delay up ahead." Liam glanced at his Patek Philippe, a gift from Charlotte's father after they'd announced the engagement. Still 2.5 hours until the ceremony. Plenty of time. "It's fine," he said, his voice carrying the automatic authority of someone used to being obeyed. "We'll get there when we get there." But as the car slowed to a crawl, then stopped completely, Liam felt something shift in his chest. A premonition he couldn't name, a sense that the universe was trying to tell him something he'd spent 5 years refusing to hear. He'd met Charlotte at a charity gala 2 years ago. She'd been poised and beautiful, discussing economic policy with the same casual fluency others used to talk about the weather. She'd made him laugh. Actually laugh, something that had become increasingly rare in his life of board meetings and acquisition negotiations. They'd had dinner, then another. Then suddenly 6 months had passed, and her father was dropping hints about grandchildren, and Charlotte was showing him pictures of venues, and somehow saying yes had seemed easier than examining why he wanted to say no. The wedding had momentum. That's what his CFO, Nathan, had said when Liam had confessed his doubts 3 months ago over whiskey in his office. Sometimes you just have to let life carry you forward. Not everything requires analysis and optimization. But Nathan didn't know about Emma. Nobody did. That was the point. Liam had erased that chapter of his life so thoroughly that sometimes even he could almost believe it had never happened. Almost. The car lurched forward a few feet, then stopped again. Through the window, Liam could see people gathering on the sidewalk, pointing at something ahead. An accident, probably. Or construction. Chicago traffic was notoriously unpredictable, even for someone whose wealth could usually bulldoze through most inconveniences. "Want me to take the side streets?" James asked, a note of concern creeping into his professional tone. "Might be faster, even with the detours." "Yeah, do that," Liam said, already pulling out his phone to check messages. 17 texts from his best man, Kyle, mostly jokes and last-minute logistics. 3 from Charlotte, each more anxious than the last. 1 from his mother, who'd flown in from Phoenix and was probably already critiquing the flower arrangements. Nothing from Emma, because Emma didn't have his number anymore. Because Emma probably didn't even know he was getting married today. Because Emma existed in a sealed-off part of his history that he'd promised himself he would never revisit. The car turned onto a narrower street, away from the main thoroughfare. Older buildings here, working-class neighborhood. The kind of area Liam had left behind when his first startup got acquired for $43 million, and suddenly every door in the world swung open for him. He should have been thinking about his vows, about Charlotte's smile, about the 500 guests waiting at the Four Seasons, and the honeymoon in Positano they'd planned down to the minute. Instead, he found himself thinking about a cramped studio apartment in Wicker Park, about frozen pizza at 2 a.m., and debates about philosophy that lasted until sunrise, about a woman with paint-stained fingers and a laugh that could make him forget every carefully constructed goal he'd ever set for himself, about the choice he'd made, the future he'd chosen over her. The car slowed again, and this time James muttered something under his breath that sounded like frustration. Liam looked up from his phone, ready to ask what the problem was, and that's when he saw her, standing on the sidewalk, maybe 15 feet away, frozen in a moment that would detonate everything Liam had spent 5 years building. Emma, 5 years older than the last time he'd seen her, but unmistakably, devastatingly her. The same dark auburn hair, though longer now, pulled back in a messy bun. The same athletic frame, though she'd always hated when he called her that. The same Emma who'd told him she loved him and begged him not to leave, standing there in worn jeans and a faded blue t-shirt that probably cost less than the socks he was wearing. But it wasn't just Emma. In her arms, one on each hip, their small hands gripping her shirt, were 2 children. Toddlers, maybe 2 years old, maybe a little older. A boy and a girl, both with dark curls and the kind of cherubic faces that belonged in diaper commercials. Both with his eyes. Liam's heart stopped. The world narrowed to that single impossible image. Emma, standing in the summer heat with 2 children who looked exactly like photographs of him at that age. Photos his mother kept in albums he hadn't looked at in decades. The car kept moving, and Emma's head turned, as if she could feel his gaze. Their eyes met through the tinted window, just for a second, maybe less. And in that fraction of time, Liam saw everything he'd tried to bury. Recognition, shock, fear, and something else he couldn't name but felt like a fist closing around his lungs. Then the car turned the corner, and she was gone. "Sir!" James's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Sir, are you all right? You look." "Stop the car." "I'm sorry." "Stop the car." James pulled over, confused but obedient. In the rearview mirror, Liam could see his driver's concerned expression, but he couldn't process it. Couldn't process anything except the image seared into his brain like a photograph he'd never be able to unsee. 2 children. Twins. The right age. The right timing. His phone buzzed again. Charlotte, probably, wondering where he was. In 2 hours and 17 minutes, he was supposed to walk down an aisle and promise forever to a woman who represented everything he'd worked for. Everything he'd chosen when he'd walked away from Emma 5 years ago. But if those children were his, and God help him, every instinct screaming in his chest said they were, then everything he thought he knew about his life, about his choices, about who he was, had just become a lie. What had Emma been doing for the past 5 years? Why had she never told him? And most devastating of all, what kind of man was he that she'd chosen to raise his children alone rather than reach out to him? Liam sat in the idling car, perfectly dressed in a $15,000 Tom Ford tux, on his way to marry into one of Chicago's most powerful families, and realized with crystalline clarity that the next decision he made would define not just his future, but the lives of people who didn't even know he existed. The question wasn't whether those children were his. The question was, what was he going to do about it? Liam hadn't always been the man in the $15,000 tuxedo. 20 years ago, he'd been the scholarship kid at Northwestern, sleeping 4 hours a night because he was working 2 jobs while carrying a full course load in computer science. His mother, Sarah, had raised him alone after his father walked out when Liam was 7, working double shifts as a nurse to keep them afloat in their South Side apartment where gunshots sometimes punctuated dinner conversation. She taught him that success wasn't just about escaping poverty. It was about never being vulnerable again, never being the person left behind, never being powerless. And for 20 years, that lesson had been his North Star. He'd met Emma 6 years ago at a gallery opening in Wicker Park. She'd been showcasing her paintings, abstract, emotional pieces that somehow captured feelings he didn't have words for. While everyone else at the event was networking and name-dropping, Emma had been standing alone in the corner, nervously adjusting her dress, looking like she wanted to disappear. "They're beautiful," he'd told her, gesturing at a canvas exploding with crimson and gold. "This one especially. It feels like hope wrestling with fear." She'd looked at him like he'd just spoken a secret language, only she understood. "That's exactly what it is. How did you? Most people just say it's nice or interesting." They'd talked until the gallery closed. Then at a diner until 3 a.m. Within a month, she'd moved into his modest apartment, bringing her easels and her impossible optimism and her belief that life was about more than bank accounts and business plans. "You're allowed to just exist, Liam," she'd told him once, after he'd worked through another weekend. "Not everything has to be about building an empire." But that's where they'd never understood each other. For Emma, who'd grown up middle class in the suburbs with parents who loved each other and Sunday dinners that didn't involve worry about rent, life could be about art and feelings and living in the moment. For Liam, security wasn't optional. It was oxygen. When his second startup got acquired and suddenly he had more money than he'd ever imagined, the pressure intensified. Investors wanted meetings. Venture capitalists courted him. Doors opened to rooms where decisions shaped industries, where power players expected you to look, talk, and think a certain way. Emma, with her paint-stained jeans and her contempt for pretension, didn't fit that world. And he'd been too much of a coward to admit that he'd started wanting to fit it more than he wanted her. The breakup had been clinical, cruel in its efficiency. "We want different things," he'd told her, already mentally preparing for a networking dinner in San Francisco. "You want a bohemian life, and I need to focus on growth. This isn't working." She'd cried. He'd walked away. He'd never looked back, or so he'd told himself. Now, sitting in the idling car with his phone buzzing insistently and his wedding looming, Liam realized he'd been looking back every single day for 5 years. Emma had haunted every relationship, every quiet moment, every time Charlotte talked about their future, and he felt like he was watching someone else's life. And now, apparently, Emma hadn't just been a ghost. She'd been raising his children. "James," Liam said, his voice hoarse. "Take me back. Back to where we were. That street." "Sir, the wedding." Now, because Liam Crawford, who'd built an empire on calculated decisions and strategic thinking, was about to do the most reckless thing he'd ever done. He was about to find out the truth. The street looked different the second time. Or maybe Liam was different, his entire reality fractured in the span of a heartbeat. James navigated back through the narrow streets, and Liam pressed against the window like a man possessed, searching for that flash of auburn hair. Those two small faces that had upended everything he thought he knew about his life. "There," he said, pointing. "Pull over right there." But the sidewalk was empty now. Emma was gone. Liam's hand was on the door handle before the car fully stopped. He stepped out into the brutal Chicago heat, his Tom Ford tuxedo immediately feeling like a costume, a ridiculous armor for a battle he hadn't known he'd be fighting today. "Sir, should I wait?" James called through the window, concern etched across his face. "Yes. No. I don't." Liam ran his hand through his carefully styled hair, destroying hours of grooming in seconds. "Just wait. I'll text you." He started down the sidewalk, scanning doorways and storefronts. A laundromat, a corner bodega, a children's consignment shop with faded toys in the window. The kind of neighborhood where people actually lived, not the sterile luxury he'd insulated himself with. Where would she have gone? An apartment nearby? A car parked on a side street? His phone erupted with calls. Charlotte. Kyle. His mother. He silenced it without looking. Then he saw it. A small playground tucked between two buildings, the kind of forgotten urban space with aging equipment and patches of struggling grass. And there, pushing a double stroller toward a bench in the shade, was Emma. Liam's legs moved before his brain could catch up. He crossed the street, dodged a delivery truck, and entered the playground through a gate that squeaked loudly enough to announce his arrival. Emma turned at the sound. For a moment, they just stared at each other across 20 feet of cracked pavement. Two people who'd once known every inch of each other, now strangers divided by years and secrets and the weight of what stood between them. She looked tired, Liam thought. Beautiful still, but worn in a way that had nothing to do with age and everything to do with carrying burdens alone. Her eyes, those green eyes that used to look at him like he was something worth believing in, now held wariness, fear, and something that looked dangerously close to anger. "Liam," she said, and his name in her voice after 5 years of silence hit him like a physical blow. "What are you doing here?" He walked toward her slowly, as if approaching a wild animal that might bolt. The twins were asleep in the stroller, tiny faces peaceful and unaware that their existence had just detonated a bomb in their father's carefully constructed world. Their father. God, he was their father. "I saw you," he said, his voice rough. "From the car. I saw you and I saw," he couldn't finish. Couldn't make the words real. Emma's jaw tightened. She positioned herself between him and the stroller, protective in a way that made his chest ache. "You should go. You're obviously on your way to something important." Her eyes flicked to his tuxedo, and something painful crossed her face. "Someone's wedding, I'm guessing?" "Mine," he said, and watched her flinch. "In less than 2 hours." The silence that followed was deafening. "Congratulations," Emma finally said, and the word was like glass in her mouth. "I'm happy for you, Liam. Now please leave." "Are they mine?" The question exploded out of him, raw and desperate. "Emma, please. Are they mine?" She didn't answer, didn't move, just stood there with tears gathering in her eyes and her hands gripping the stroller handle so tightly her knuckles were white. "Their names are Aiden and Ava," she whispered finally. "They're 2.5 years old. Aiden loves trucks and hates carrots. Ava sings to herself in her sleep and has your mother's smile, though she'll never know that. And yes, Liam, they're yours." The world tilted. Liam reached for the fence to steady himself, his $3 billion empire suddenly meaningless in the face of this impossible truth. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice broke. "Emma, why didn't you?" "Tell you?" Her laugh was bitter, broken. "You made it very clear what you wanted when you left. Your empire. Your success. Your world that I didn't fit into. Was I supposed to call you up and trap you with the one thing you explicitly said you didn't want? Children would have derailed everything you were building. You told me that. Multiple times. That was different. These are my children." "No," Emma's voice turned to steel. "These are my children. I carried them. I birthed them. I've spent every single night for 2.5 years raising them alone while working 3 jobs to keep us afloat. You were a sperm donor, Liam. Nothing more." The words were meant to wound, and they did. But beneath his shock, beneath his anger, Liam felt something else stirring. A fierce, primal claim that had nothing to do with logic and everything to do with those 2 sleeping faces that carried his DNA, his eyes, his blood. "I have a right," he started. "You have nothing." Emma's voice cracked. "You gave up every right when you walked away. When you chose your precious success over us. Over me. I didn't know about them. And whose fault is that? I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after you left. 2 weeks after you told me I wasn't worth your time anymore. That I was holding you back." Tears were streaming down her face now. "Was I supposed to beg you to come back? To use our babies as leverage? I loved you too much for that, Liam. And I hated you too much to give you the chance to choose them the way you didn't choose me." Liam's phone buzzed insistently in his pocket. Charlotte, probably. Or Kyle. Or any of the 500 people waiting for him to show up and fulfill his destiny as the man who had everything. Everything except this. "I'm getting married in 90 minutes, he said, more to himself than to her. "I'm supposed to be. Charlotte's father is Senator Morrison. We've been planning this for a year. Everyone's there. Everyone's waiting. Then you should go," Emma said coldly. "Go marry your perfect society wife and have your perfect life. We don't need you. We never did." But even as she said it, one of the twins, Aiden maybe, stirred in his sleep, and Liam caught a glimpse of his son's face, really saw it for the first time. The curve of his cheek, the sweep of his eyelashes, the way his tiny hand curled into a fist. His son, his daughter, his children, who'd been growing and learning and existing without him while he'd been building empires and planning weddings and telling himself he'd made all the right choices. Liam looked at Emma, at the woman he'd loved and left, who'd raised his children in poverty while he'd accumulated billions, and felt his entire identity fracturing into pieces he didn't know how to reassemble. Charlotte was waiting. His mother. 500 guests. A life that made sense. But Aiden and Ava were here. Real. Undeniable. And somewhere in the space between those 2 realities, Liam Crawford had to choose who he was going to be. "I can't just walk away," he said quietly. "Not from this. Not from them. You did before. I didn't know. And now you do." Emma's voice was exhausted, defeated. "Now you know, and you're still standing here in your wedding tuxedo, trying to figure out how to minimize the damage to your precious reputation. So go, Liam. Go be the man you always wanted to be. We'll survive. We always have. She turned to push the stroller away, and Liam felt panic surge through him. The sense that if he let her walk away now, he'd lose something he'd never be able to find again. Wait, he said. Emma, wait. Please. She stopped but didn't turn around. Give me 24 hours, he heard himself say. One day. I need to think. I need to figure out. Figure out what? How to pay us off. How to make this problem disappear. How to be their father. The words hung in the air between them, impossible and true. Emma finally turned, and the look on her face was so complex. Hope and skepticism and fear and longing all tangled together, that Liam felt like he was seeing her clearly for the first time in years. You're getting married in 90 minutes, she said softly. I know. So what are you going to do? And as his phone exploded with calls again, as the summer heat pressed down on them like a physical weight, as his son and daughter slept peacefully in their stroller, oblivious to the chaos of their existence, Liam realized he didn't have an answer. He only had a choice that would destroy someone's life, no matter what he decided. The question was, whose? Liam didn't go to his wedding. Instead, he sent a text to Kyle that would detonate his life. Can't explain now. Tell Charlotte I'm sorry. Tell everyone I'm sorry. I'll call soon. Then he turned off his phone. Emma stared at him like he'd lost his mind. What are you doing? What I should have done 5 years ago, he said. I'm staying. Liam, you can't just, people are waiting for you. Your fiancé can wait. The words felt foreign in his mouth, reckless. Everything in his carefully calibrated life screamed that this was wrong, impulsive, the kind of emotional decision that destroyed empires. But for once, he didn't care. Give me today. Let me meet them. Really meet them. Emma's expression cycled through disbelief, anger, and something that looked dangerously like hope before she locked it down. You don't get to waltz in here and play daddy because you're having a crisis. They're not props for your redemption arc. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're a stranger in a tuxedo who just abandoned his wedding on a whim. Then let me be less of a stranger. He took a step closer, careful not to invade her space. Please, Emma. I know I have no right to ask. I know I destroyed everything between us. But they deserve to know their father, and I deserve. You deserve nothing. She cut him off, but her voice wavered. You made your choice. I made it without all the information. That's not my fault. I'm not saying it is. Liam ran his hands through his hair again, frustration and desperation warring in his chest. I'm just saying, let me try. One day. If I screw it up, if I prove I'm the selfish bastard you think I am, I'll leave. I'll set up a trust fund and disappear from your lives. But please, give me a chance. The twins stirred. Ava's eyes fluttered open, green like her mother's, and she looked up at Liam with the kind of innocent curiosity that made his heart crack open. Mama, she said, her voice small and perfect. Right here, baby, Emma murmured, immediately shifting into mother mode. She lifted Ava from the stroller, settled her on her hip, and the little girl's arms wrapped around her neck with the unconscious trust of a child who'd never doubted her mother's presence. Liam felt like he was watching a play he had no script for. Emma moved with practiced ease, adjusting Ava's shirt, smoothing her curls, whispering something that made the toddler giggle. This was a person he'd never known. Emma the mother. Emma the survivor. Emma the woman who'd built a life from the wreckage he'd left behind. Aiden woke next, immediately reaching for his sister with a whine of protest at being left alone. Emma somehow managed both children with a grace that suggested she'd been doing this impossible juggling act for years. They're hungry, she said, not looking at Liam. And I need to get them home for lunch and nap time. So if you're serious about this, you can come. But I swear to God, Liam, if you hurt them, I won't. You already have. Just by not being there. The accusation landed like a physical blow, but it was deserved. Fair. True. Then let me start making up for it, he said quietly. Let me try. Emma studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she sighed, defeated or resigned or maybe just exhausted. Fine. One day. But we do this my way, in my world. You don't throw money at problems or try to fix everything with your billion-dollar solutions. You show up. You be present. You meet them as they are, not as you imagine them to be. Okay. And Liam. She finally met his eyes, and the pain there was devastating. When this day is over and you realize how hard this actually is, how much work it takes to be a parent instead of a checkbook, don't make promises you can't keep. These babies have already lived without a father. They can keep doing it, but they can't survive being abandoned twice. The implication was clear. I can't survive being abandoned twice. Liam nodded, not trusting his voice. Emma adjusted both children in her arms and started walking. Come on then, and lose the tuxedo jacket. You look ridiculous. As Liam followed her out of the playground, away from his waiting car, his cancelled wedding, his imploding life, his phone vibrated one last time in his pocket. He ignored it. For the first time in 20 years, Liam Crawford was choosing something that made no logical sense, that offered no guaranteed return on investment, that could destroy everything he'd built. He was choosing to stay. The question was whether he'd have the courage to keep choosing it when the full weight of his decision came crashing down. Emma's apartment was nothing like Liam remembered. Gone was the light-filled artist's loft with canvases stacked against exposed brick. Instead, she led him to a fourth-floor walk-up in a building that had seen better decades, where the elevator had an out-of-order sign that looked permanent. Sorry, she said, not sounding sorry at all as she hefted both toddlers up the stairs. Not exactly penthouse living. Liam reached for Aiden without thinking. Let me. Emma pulled back instinctively, protective, but Aiden was already reaching for him with chubby arms, curious about the stranger. After a moment's hesitation, she transferred their son into Liam's awkward hold. The weight of him, solid real, made Liam's throat close up. Aiden studied his face with serious eyes, then poked his nose. Boop, the little boy said solemnly. Boop, Liam echoed, his voice cracking. Emma's apartment was small but meticulously organized. Toys in labeled bins. Children's books stacked neatly. A tiny kitchen where every inch of counter space served a purpose. But it was the corner that made Liam stop breathing. Dozens of paintings stacked against the wall, covered in dust. You stopped painting, he said. Hard to paint when you're working 3 jobs. Emma set Ava down and moved to the kitchen. Make yourself useful. There are sippy cups in that cabinet. As Emma prepared lunch and the twins played with blocks on the floor, Liam's phone, still silenced, buzzed continuously in his pocket. He could imagine the chaos. Charlotte in tears, her father furious, his mother frantically calling hospitals, Kyle trying to manage 500 confused guests. He should feel guilty. He should feel something. Instead, he felt like he was waking up from a 5-year coma. Why didn't you at least tell me you were pregnant? He asked, watching Ava stack blocks with intense concentration. Even if you didn't want me involved, I deserve to know. Emma's hands stilled over the sandwiches she was making. I tried. What? I tried, Liam. She turned to face him, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. 2 weeks after you left, I found out I was pregnant. I was terrified, but I actually thought you'd want to know. That maybe it would change things. Emma, I called you 17 times. You never answered. So I came to your office. Her voice shook. Do you remember? 3 years ago, November 15th? I showed up at Crawford Technologies, 7 months pregnant, desperate to tell you before the twins were born. Liam's mind raced back. November, 3 years ago. He'd been in the middle of the biggest acquisition of his career, negotiations that would make or break his company's expansion into Europe. He'd been. Oh God, he whispered. Your assistant told me you were in a meeting. I said I'd wait. I waited for 4 hours in that glass lobby, Liam. For hours, getting bigger and more uncomfortable, watching important people walk in and out, feeling like exactly what you'd always been afraid I'd make you look like. Trash from the wrong side of town. Emma, I didn't know. I know you didn't know. Her voice rose, making both twins look up with worried eyes. She immediately softened, forced a smile for them. I know, because you finally came down, saw me standing there, and you looked at me like I was a problem you'd already solved. Like I was something embarrassing from your past that had the audacity to show up in your present. Liam remembered now. The pregnant woman in his lobby. He'd been so focused on his phone, on the deal, on getting back upstairs. He'd seen her and thought, I thought you were someone's girlfriend, he said, horror washing over him. Some employee's partner. I told security to escort me out. Emma's laugh was hollow. You told them I was trespassing. You walked right past me, Liam. You looked at me, pregnant with your children, and you saw nothing. The room spun. Liam reached for the counter to steady himself. I didn't recognize you, he whispered. Your hair was different, you were. Pregnant and poor and not worth your time. She wiped her eyes angrily. I went home that night and decided you'd made your choice. You'd literally had security remove me from your building. So I stopped trying. I figured if the universe was sending me a message that clear, I should probably listen. Aiden toddled over to Liam, sensing distress, and patted his leg. Sad? He asked. Liam picked him up, buried his face in his son's curls, and tried not to fall apart. I'm so sorry, he said. Emma, I'm so sorry doesn't feed them. Sorry doesn't pay for daycare or medicine or the million things they need every single day. But her voice cracked. Sorry doesn't give me back 3 years of doing this alone. Then let me make it right. However long it takes. Whatever you need. Emma looked at him. Really looked at him. And for the first time since the playground, her armor cracked. I'm so tired, Liam. I'm so tired of doing this alone. But I'm even more terrified of letting you in and having you leave again. I won't. You don't know that. You have a fiancé. A life. An empire that requires you to be someone I don't recognize anymore. She gestured at his tuxedo. This isn't sustainable. Eventually, you'll go back to your world, and we'll still be here, and it'll be worse because they'll know what they're missing. Liam's phone buzzed again. Charlotte's name flashed on the screen before he silenced it. Emma saw. You should answer that. She deserves better than this. So do you, Liam said. So do they. Then prove it. Emma's voice was steel wrapped in exhaustion. Don't just show up for one day because you're having a crisis. Show up tomorrow. And the day after. Show up when it's hard and boring and thankless. Show up when they're sick at 3 a.m. and when I'm falling apart and when your fancy friends are having parties you're missing because you're here, changing diapers. I will. You say that now. I mean it. Their eyes locked, and the air between them crackled with 5 years of unfinished business, with love and hate and the impossible weight of 2 small lives that connected them forever. One day at a time, Emma finally said. That's all I can give you. One day at a time, and you prove you mean it. Liam nodded, knowing it wasn't enough, but also knowing it was all he deserved. His old life was burning down. Charlotte was probably destroying his belongings. His reputation was in ruins. But Aiden was still in his arms, and Ava was bringing him a block like an offering, and Emma was looking at him like maybe, he could become someone worth believing in again. One day at a time, he agreed. What he didn't say, he'd already made his choice. He just hoped he was strong enough to live with it. The knock on Emma's door came at 8 p.m., just as she'd gotten the twins down for the night. Liam had spent the afternoon learning how to change diapers, reading picture books with voices he didn't know he could make, and watching his children with the kind of wonder that felt both beautiful and heartbreaking. For a few hours, Emma had let herself imagine what it might be like if this were real, if he actually stayed. Then Charlotte Morrison appeared in her doorway. She was everything Emma wasn't, tall, blonde, elegant even in her distress. Her engagement ring caught the light from the hallway, a rock so massive it looked obscene. Her eyes were red from crying, but she held herself with the kind of composure that came from years of boarding school training. You must be Emma, Charlotte said, her voice trembling but controlled. May I come in? Emma glanced back at Liam, who'd gone pale. Charlotte, you shouldn't be. Don't, Charlotte cut him off. Don't tell me what I should or shouldn't do. Not today. Emma stepped aside, let her in, because what else could she do? This woman had every right to answers. Charlotte stood in the middle of Emma's tiny living room, looking at the toys scattered on the floor, the photos on the wall of Aiden and Ava, the evidence of a life that had been built without Liam but because of him. They're beautiful, Charlotte said softly. Your children. They look just like him. Charlotte, Liam started. How long have you known? Charlotte turned to him, and the pain in her voice was devastating. About them? I found out this morning. I swear, I just found out, and immediately abandoned our wedding. She laughed, but it was bitter. 500 people, Liam. My parents. Your mother. Everyone we know, waiting while I stood there in my dress, trying to understand why the man I loved would humiliate me like this. I'm sorry. Are you? Charlotte's composure cracked. Because from where I'm standing, you made your choice pretty quickly. You chose her. Again. Emma's head snapped up. Again. Charlotte's eyes met hers, and Emma saw recognition there. Understanding. The solidarity of women who'd loved the same impossible man. He never told you about me, did he? Charlotte said. That we met 5 years ago. That I was the reason he had to focus on his career. That I was always waiting in the wings while he decided whether you were worth keeping. The words hit Emma like a physical blow. She looked at Liam, saw the truth in his face. Is that true? Her voice was barely a whisper. Emma, it's not. It was complicated. Did you leave me for her? No. I left because I wasn't ready. Because I was building something and I couldn't. You left me for her, Emma said, and everything clicked into place. The sudden coldness. The clinical efficiency of their breakup. The way he'd seemed relieved to go. You left me pregnant and alone because Charlotte Morrison was a better investment than the struggling artist from Wicker Park. That's not fair. Isn't it? Emma's voice rose, years of buried pain erupting. You chose her world over me. Her connections, her money, her perfect pedigree. And when I showed up pregnant at your office, you had security throw me out because I didn't fit the image you were trying to build. From the bedroom, Ava started crying. The sound cut through the room like a knife. I should go, Charlotte said quietly. She pulled off her engagement ring, set it on Emma's coffee table with a finality that echoed. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I didn't know about your children. If I had. She looked at Liam with something like pity. I thought I knew you. I thought I knew what we were building together. But you're the same man who left her. Aren't you? Just older. Richer. Better at hiding who you really are. Charlotte, please. I hope she's worth it, Liam. I hope your children are worth everything you just destroyed. She walked to the door, paused. But I think we both know you'll disappoint her too. That's what you do. You make promises you can't keep to women who deserve better. The door closed behind her with devastating quiet. Emma was already moving toward the bedroom, toward Ava's cries, but Liam grabbed her arm. Emma, listen to me. Don't touch me. She jerked away, and the look in her eyes was pure betrayal. You lied to me. For 5 years. I thought you left because you wanted success more than love. But you left me for her. You traded me in for an upgrade. That's not what happened. Then what happened, Liam? Explain to me how you met Charlotte 5 years ago, how you chose her over me, how you've been building this perfect life with her while I've been raising your children in poverty. I didn't know about them. Because you didn't want to know. Emma was crying now, furious and broken. You wanted the life she could give you. The connections, the status, the perfect political wife. And when I inconveniently showed up with the consequences of your choices, you had me removed like garbage. Aiden started crying too, both twins now wailing from the bedroom. Emma moved past Liam, scooped them both into her arms, held them close. I think you should leave, she said, her voice dead. Emma, please. I said leave. She turned to face him, and her expression was carved from stone. You showed up here playing the shocked father, the remorseful man who just found out about his kids. But you're the same person who chose her over me. The same person who built a life with another woman while I struggled alone. The same person who'll choose his comfort over us every single time. That's not true, isn't it? You left your wedding for us, Liam. That's what you keep saying. But you only did it because you got caught. If you hadn't seen us on that street, you'd be married to Charlotte right now, and we'd still be invisible. The truth of it hung in the air, undeniable. I want you to go, Emma said quietly. And I don't want you to come back. Not tomorrow, not next week. You had your chance 5 years ago, and you had it again when I came to your office. You chose wrong both times. I won't let you break my children's hearts the way you broke mine. They're my children too. Then you should have acted like it when it mattered. Her voice cracked. Get out, Liam. Get out before I say things I can't take back. Liam stood there, everything he'd gained in the last 8 hours slipping through his fingers. His old life was destroyed. His new one was being ripped away before it could begin. Emma, please, she whispered, and the brokenness in her voice destroyed him. Just go. So he did. He walked out of that apartment and down 4 flights of stairs and into the Chicago night, where his driver was still waiting, where his phone had 247 missed calls, where his entire world had burned down and he had no one to blame but himself. He'd lost Charlotte. He'd lost Emma. He'd lost his children before he'd really even met them. And the worst part was knowing that Charlotte had been right. He was exactly the man who'd left Emma 5 years ago. Just older, richer, and better at hiding it. The question was whether he had the courage to actually change, or whether he'd just keep destroying everyone who was foolish enough to love him. Liam didn't go home. He couldn't face his empty penthouse, the wedding gifts still waiting to be returned, the life he'd detonated in the span of a single day. Instead, he found himself at his mother's hotel room at 2 a.m., knocking until she answered in her robe, eyes wide with worry and fury. Liam Crawford, do you have any idea? I have children, Mom. The words tumbled out. Twins. A boy and a girl. They're 2.5 years old, and I didn't know. I didn't know because I was so focused on becoming someone you'd be proud of that I became someone I hate. Sarah stared at her son. This man who'd built empires to prove he'd never be powerless like his father had made them, and watched him finally break. Tell me everything, she said quietly, pulling him inside. So he did. He told her about Emma, about the breakup, about seeing them on the street, about Charlotte appearing at the door, and the truth that had destroyed what little ground he'd gained. About Emma's face when she'd told him to leave. I don't know how to fix this, he said, his voice raw. I don't know how to be the man they need me to be. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone, scrolled through photos, and handed it to Liam. Pictures of him as a child. Pictures he'd never seen. Your father took these, she said softly. Before he left. He loved you, Liam. He was just too broken, too addicted, too lost to stay. I was so angry at him for so long that I taught you the wrong lesson. What do you mean? I taught you that love makes you vulnerable. That needing people makes you weak. That the only way to survive is to need nothing and no one. She took his hand. But that's not strength, baby. That's just fear wearing a different mask. Liam looked at the photos, his father's face, happy in a way he'd never seen. Why are you telling me this? Because you're standing at the same crossroads he was. You can choose fear, protect yourself, walk away, let money solve what your heart should fix. Or you can choose courage. Real courage. The kind that shows up even when it's hard, even when you're terrified, even when you have no guarantee it'll work out. Emma doesn't want me there. Emma's been hurt by you twice. She's protecting herself and her babies. Can you blame her? Sarah squeezed his hand. But I know my son. When you actually commit to something, you're relentless. So the question is, are you committed? Really committed? Or are you just having a crisis that'll pass when the dust settles? Liam thought about Aiden's weight in his arms. Ava's tentative smile. Emma's exhaustion and her courage, and the life she'd built from nothing while he'd been playing Billionaire. I want them, he said. I want to be their father. I want to be the man Emma thought I could be 5 years ago. Then wanting isn't enough. Sarah's voice turned firm. You need to prove it. Not with money. That's the easy way out. With time. With presence. With becoming the man who shows up, day after day, even when no one's watching. She won't let me back in. Then you camp outside her door. You show up every single day until she believes you've changed. You put in the work, Liam. The boring, hard, thankless work of actually being present. She smiled sadly. Your father never did that. He took the easy way out. Don't be him. Liam looked at his mother. This woman who'd raised him alone, who'd taught him strength but forgotten to teach him vulnerability, and realized she'd been just as scared as he was. I'm sorry, he said, for making you proud the wrong way, for thinking success meant never needing anyone. You made me proud by being kind, Sarah corrected, by being curious and smart and good. The billions were just noise. She pulled him into a hug. Now go get your family. And don't come back until you've figured out how to be the man they deserve. At dawn, Liam stood outside Emma's building with coffee and bagels, knowing she'd have to come out eventually for the twins' morning routine. He'd showered, changed into jeans and a t-shirt, donated the tuxedo to charity. He'd called his board, announced he was taking a leave of absence. He'd texted Charlotte one final apology, knowing it would never be enough. He'd chosen. When Emma emerged with the double stroller, she stopped cold at the sight of him. What are you doing here? Showing up, Liam said simply. And I'm going to keep showing up. Every day. However long it takes for you to believe I mean it. Liam, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to like me. But those kids deserve a father who fights for them, and you deserve a partner who actually shows up. So I'm here, and I'll be here tomorrow, and the day after that. Emma stared at him, searching for the trap, the angle, the inevitable disappointment. I have a condition, she said finally. Anything. You don't get to be their father until you've earned it. You want in their lives. You start at the bottom. You be the babysitter, the diaper changer, the 3 a.m. comfort when they're sick. You prove you can do the hard parts before you get any of the good parts. Okay. And you go to therapy. You figure out why you keep running from the people who love you. Because I won't let you hurt them the way you hurt me. I will. I'll do all of it. Emma looked at him for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone. Fine. Be at my apartment at 6 p.m. You're on dinner and bath duty. And Liam. She met his eyes. Don't make me regret this. As she walked away with their children, Liam felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years. Hope, not certainty, not control. Just hope that maybe, he could actually become the man his family needed. Starting today. 3 months later, Liam sat in Emma's tiny living room at 3 a.m., holding a feverish Aiden while Ava slept fitfully on the couch beside him. Emma had finally gone to bed an hour ago, exhausted from 2 days of the twins being sick. This was the 47th night he'd shown up. 47 nights of proving himself, one diaper change and bedtime story at a time. His phone buzzed. Nathan, his CFO, board meeting in 6 hours. They're pushing for your return. Stock's down 12% since you left. Liam looked at his son's flushed face, felt the small body's trust as Aiden burrowed closer, and typed back. Tell them I'll return when I'm ready. Not before. The apartment door opened. Emma stood there in her pajamas, bleary-eyed. You're still here, she said softly. Where else would I be? She sat beside him, checked Aiden's temperature. His fever's breaking. Then, after a pause, you don't have to keep doing this, you know. You've proven your point. This isn't about proving anything anymore. Liam met her eyes. This is just where I want to be. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then, I got offered a gallery show. In Seattle. It would mean moving, starting over, but it's everything I dreamed of before. She stopped. Before I destroyed your life, Liam finished. Emma, you should take it. You deserve it. The twins. I'll come with you. Or I'll fly back and forth every weekend. Or whatever you need. But you don't give up your dreams because of me. Not again. Something shifted in Emma's expression. You really mean that? I really mean that. She reached out, touched his face like she was seeing him for the first time. Who are you? Because you're not the man who left me. I'm the man who's trying not to be him anymore. Emma leaned closer, and Liam's breath caught. But instead of kissing him, she whispered. There's something I need to tell you. About the day you had security remove me from your building. Emma, we don't have to. I was coming to tell you I was keeping them. That I decided to be a mother. But I was also coming to tell you. She took a shaky breath. That I understood why you left. That you were right, we wanted different things. I was coming to set you free, Liam. To tell you that you didn't owe me anything. The revelation hung between them. But when you didn't recognize me, she continued, when you walked right past like I was nobody, it broke something in me. Made me think you'd never cared at all. I cared too much, Liam said roughly. That's why I left. I was terrified of how much I needed you. Of how you made me want things that didn't fit the plan I'd built my entire life around. And now I know the plan was bullshit. That the only thing that matters is sitting right here in this room. Emma finally kissed him, soft, tentative, like they were learning each other all over again. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet. I'm still scared, she whispered. So am I. But I'm more scared of living without you. Without them. Without this. He gestured at the cramped apartment, the sick toddlers, the 3 a.m. chaos. This is what I want, Emma. Not the empire. Not the billions. Just this. Aiden stirred, opened his eyes. Dada, he said sleepily, and Liam's heart cracked open all over again. Yeah, buddy. Dada's here. Story. So at 3:47 a.m., in a 4th-floor walk-up that cost less than his monthly parking spot, Liam Crawford told his son a story about a man who'd lost his way and the family who'd helped him find it again. And for the first time in his life, he knew exactly where he belonged. 6 months later, Emma stood in a Seattle gallery watching strangers admire her paintings. The ones she'd finally had time to finish. The collection was called Reconstruction. And every piece told the story of breaking apart and building something new from the fragments. That one's my favorite, a familiar voice said behind her. She turned to find Liam holding both twins, one on each hip, looking proud and slightly disheveled. Ava had smeared what appeared to be chocolate on his shirt. Aiden was clutching a stuffed truck like his life depended on it. You're supposed to be at your board meeting, Emma said, but she was smiling. Finished early. Told them I had somewhere more important to be. He'd returned to Crawford Technologies part-time, with Nathan handling day-to-day operations. Liam had discovered he preferred being present for bedtimes to being present for earnings calls. Besides, the kids wanted to see Mama's big night. Mama pretty, Ava declared, reaching for Emma. Emma took her daughter, felt the familiar weight settle against her hip, and looked at this life they'd built together. Messy, complicated, nothing like either of them had planned. "There's someone here I want you to meet," Liam said softly. Emma turned to see Charlotte Morrison standing near the entrance, elegant as ever, but with a warmth in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "Charlotte," Emma breathed. "I hope it's okay that I came," Charlotte said. "Liam invited me, but if it's too much—" "No, I'm glad you're here." And Emma realized she meant it. "I'm sorry for everything that happened." "Don't be. You did me a favor." Charlotte smiled ruefully. "I was marrying a man who was running from himself. Now I'm dating a public defender who makes me laugh and doesn't care about my last name. Turns out getting left at the altar was the best thing that ever happened to me. I still feel terrible." "Well, stop. You gave me my life back. I'd say we're even." Charlotte looked at the twins, at Liam, at Emma. "You're good together. The real kind of good, not the kind that looks perfect in photos. I'm happy for you. Truly." After Charlotte left, Emma and Liam stood together watching the crowd, their children between them, and Emma felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. "I have something for you," Liam said. He pulled out a small box, but Emma's heart didn't race with panic, because she knew who he was now, who they were together. Inside wasn't a ring. It was a key. "To the loft space 2 blocks from here," he explained. "Lights perfect for painting. Big enough for your studio and an office for me. 3 bedrooms, so the twins can have their own rooms, and maybe—" he looked nervous. "Maybe room to grow if you want. Someday." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Liam, I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. I know we're still rebuilding trust, still figuring this out. But I'm asking you to build a life with me. A real one. Not based on fear or obligation, but on choice. Every single day I choose you. I choose them. I choose this. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Emma looked at this man who'd left her, found her, and spent 6 months learning how to actually stay. Who'd walked away from billions to sit on her floor building block towers. Who'd chosen love over legacy, presence over power. "Yes," she said simply. Aiden tugged on Liam's pants. "Ice cream now." Liam laughed, that genuine, unguarded laugh that Emma had fallen in love with years ago. "Yeah, buddy. Ice cream now." As they walked out of the gallery together, Emma carrying Ava, Liam holding Aiden's hand, looking like any other young family navigating the Seattle evening, Emma thought about the painting Charlotte had admired. It was called The Return, and it showed a figure walking back toward a light they'd once abandoned, finally brave enough to come home. 3 months later, on a quiet Sunday morning in their new loft with sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, Liam woke to find Emma sketching at her easel, the twins playing at her feet, and he realized this was the empire he'd been trying to build all along. Not money, not power, not the illusion of control, just this messy, beautiful, impossible love. And it was worth everything he'd lost to find it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this story touched your heart the way it touched mine. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more emotional billionaire romance stories. Drop a comment below and let me know. Where are you reading from? What was your favorite part? Should Liam and Emma get married next? Or do they need more time? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep believing in second chances and the courage it takes to choose love over fear. See you in the next story.